deep in the furnace of a dying star. Eons of fusion have created iron, and as the nuclear furnace is cooled, a sudden and violent explosion spread the iron across the cosmos. Over the next few billion years, these heavier elements accreted into this place that we call the Earth. Time passes, and humans discover this iron deep in the Earth and discover its mystical properties. They discover ways of forging this iron and create one of mankind's greatest inventions, the truck stop knife. This is where the story of iron ends, and my story begins. This is JJJinks Truck Stop Knives! JJJinks Truck Stop Knives! Hello everyone. Now, for today's video, I've put together this pile of knives that I couldn't really find any way to really talk about in any kind of context. So I figured, why don't I just put all the weird ones together and talk about them and say this is how they go together. So the nice thing about this collection, this pile that I have, is that they each have a story to them. And for someone who collects a lot of knives and a lot of weird knives and kind of treasures the weirdness, having a personal story to go with a knife is kind of a perk to the whole thing. Rather than say, I saw a knife that I liked, I bought it, and now I own it, and that's it. Certainly I do have some knives that fit that bill. These are not them. So I'm going to start with this knife. You know, sometimes you're browsing a website that sells knives, and you see something that just kind of makes you stop scrolling. And then I was like, that's a fish. That's a fish with a keychain coming out of its butt. And it was like a few dollars. And I had my choice of colors. I could have gotten yellow or green. I was like, I'm going to go for orange. And it turns out it's actually a brand that's like kind of, sort of known. It's Gilly. And the blade's like painted white. So when you open it, it's like there's a blade shooting out of this fish's mouth. And I think that's funny, and that's why I bought it. I got it from DHgate, which sells Chinese stuff. So this came over from China. It is an orange fish, maybe a shark. I'm not sure. But I wanted this fish knife, this Gilly knife. Gilly is a brand that makes fishing-oriented knives, I think. I'm not sure. This is the only one I own, so that's my Gilly knife. And I like how the pivot is kind of like the eye. And then they just kind of randomly put the a rivet up here in the fin. It is a slip joint, so that's where it... Yeah. Anyway, on to the next one. Which one should I do? This knife. I've been wanting to talk about this knife for a very long time. I was driving out somewhere, this was a long time ago, somewhere near, like, I want to say eastern Oklahoma, and I kept seeing billboards for a cutlery shop, store, place thing. And I was on a long trip, so I decided I'm going to stop there. And it was a cutlery store. Like, they had, I mean, pocket knives. They sold everything. They had Case, they had CRKT, they had Kershaw, they had some Sabenzas. It was a pretty cool place. And I bought a few things, and this is one of them. I noticed kind of in the corner of the shop, they had this box full of like broken and shitty, rusted crap knives. And it was like, you get these, any of these you want, $1. So I look and I saw several of these, and something just kind of drew me to them. These are just, this is a lock back kind of mini buck knife sort of style. There's cross hatching on the bolsters, which appear to be, pretty sure they're brass, made in the People's Republic of China, and written across the top. And I'm gonna apologize again for like the way my camera is not good. Up there it says Golden Tiger Stainless Rockwell 44, and there's actually a picture of like a tiger's head right there. And like I said, they had several of these in the box. A lot of them were broken, rusted, crappy looking. This is like the best looking one, so I got it for $1. And the handle is wood, some kind of dark lacquered wood that bulges in the middle. And that's everything that I know about this knife. I've looked online, and I have actually found that it's weird because the internet sort of archives things that don't exist anymore, but apparently there was like some kind of knife auction site where somebody had pictures of one of these, and they come in variations. Sometimes the bolsters are a little different, or sometimes the blade shape's a little different, but they got that tiger thing on the blade. And they're like, I don't know, it came from China. It's old. Nobody really knows how old. I'm fascinated by how little I know about this knife. And so it is kind of some pretty solid construction. You don't see gaps. The centering's pretty good. It's a pretty solid piece. So I'd be interested to learn more about this knife. I just don't know anything about it, but Eastern Oklahoma cutlery shop I bought it from. I had a bunch. Now, there was a period of time when I first started collecting knives. I was looking at Case a lot. I kind of looked to Case as like a golden standard company. And I was kind of thinking that maybe I should pick a style of knife, like a trapper, which everybody knows what that is, or a Congress. Like, pick something and like collect that. But I didn't like trappers that much, and then the Congress, the swaybacks, the Stockmans didn't really do anything for me. But what I really kind of liked looking around were these. This is called a Barlow knife, and they're very recognizable by the fact that they're kind of small and stubby, and they have these very big bolsters. And there's one or two or sometimes more blades. And they're slip joints, so you just open and close like Swiss Army knife style. And so I figured I'm gonna collect Barlows. This particular one has this interesting clip point blade, and then on the other one, it's a pen knife. Not too uncommon. So I bought a couple of Barlows from Smoky Mountain Knife Works, where they weren't terribly expensive. I don't think I paid much more than $10 or $15 for this one, and I got a couple other ones. This is kind of the best one that I've got. They make really cheap, shitty ones where I should have dragged it out to show you, but it's about this one right now. And I was like, you know what? I kind of like the style. I like that it's got this big bolster, and then the handle's kind of big enough that you can do interesting things with it. This is just plastic. But the problem is that Case doesn't really make Barlows. Not very many people do, and they can get expensive. But there is a neat history behind them. These were, I guess, knives that were popularly carried by sailors, I guess, from what I remember reading. Back in like the 1600s is when they kind of first appeared. And because sailors were kind of seen as like the unsavory types. You stay away from those guys. They're shifty. So the Barlow knife kind of had a bad reputation for a while, and then at some point, for some reason, some knife maker somewhere resurrected it, and we have it today. So that is the Barlow knife. This one's made by Rough Rider, which is Smoky Mountain Knife Works. This next knife, this is another one of those ones where I was kind of browsing around and I wasn't really sure what I was looking at, and so I bought it. And it's kind of a coin knife, I guess. It's really interesting. It's got this like bell looking piece on it, and here's the blade, which just has a stud on it actually right there, and you swivel it out, and there's a piece cut here with some tension on it, so it actually locks. And I guess the idea is you can like hold it like this, and I don't know, maybe I should prepare some food with this one. It's got that forward curve that the Dragon's Fury has, and that's pretty much it. It's just a slip joint. You can push it back in. It's not very useful. It's just kind of a novelty. There's like this hole here, and it would be really cool if there was some kind of a bottle opening thing to it or something, but it's really just a novelty item. These coin blades, you can see them at various online stores, and well, I got it. I was fascinated with it. I played with it for a while, and then I was like, wow, it's kind of dumb. Now this knife right here is a Victorinox knife, Swiss Army knife, and it's pretty small. It's only got two things in it. It's got your typical blade and a bottle opener. It's sharp enough to be a can opener. And of course they tell you, oh, this thing's got like 17,000 functions on it. Yeah, they put this little slot right there to say, oh, you can strip wires with it, and you can use that to unscrew things. And there's like the tweezers and the toothpick. They counted the key ring as a function. This was this was the very first knife that I ever owned. When I was I'm not sure how old I was. I was probably, gosh, 11. And my dad enrolled me in the Boy Scouts, and we learned about, you know, knife safety, and it was like, oh, maybe we should get you a knife. And so we went to an Ace Hardware, and they had a whole display case full of Victorinox knives that went from this thin to like that thick. And I was fascinated with the real thick ones. I wanted knives that could do all kinds of shit. And I was like, no, we're getting the cheapest one because you don't need anything like that. And so this is the Bantam. And at the time, I think we got it for about $10. This is like early 90s. And I've had it ever since. And I've lost it a couple times and then found it and lost it and found it. Somehow I still have the toothpick and the tweezers and the key ring, and it's in good shape because I really didn't use it that much. But that was my first knife. Long time ago. Anyway, this was not my first knife, but it was one of the first knives that I ever bought from Bud K, and that's why this is special to me. My story about how I discovered Bud K was basically I was browsing around the YouTube, and you know how YouTube is, rabbit hole, tangent, and somehow I watched a Bud K unboxing video. So I jumped on their website, and I saw all kinds of cool stuff, and I don't know, this is by United Cutlery. It's basically a boot knife with a hard plastic sheath, and the blade is very spiky. It's like a spear. And then they put these slots down here just so that they can show you, hey, it's full tang. And it's kind of comfortable holding it. It's pretty dangerous too, because it's sharp on both sides. And it says Spec Agent on the hilt. And the sheath is pretty neat because it's all hard plastic, and it's just this like kind of hooked thing here that you snap it into, and I think I got it for $10, and I was like, man, Bud K's awesome. Oh, what little did I know back then. But I kind of like this knife. It's neat, and it's stabby looking, and for the price that I paid, I kind of like it, so it sticks around in my collection. I got a few more. One day, I was shopping around on this website that's known for selling all kinds of cheap Chinese crap, and it ain't Bud K. It was DHgate. And I decided I'm going to buy the cheapest knife they've got. So I typed in pocket knife, sort price low to high, and this is what came up. This was the cheapest knife on their list. I got this for 10 cents. Free shipping. So what are we looking at? Well, we got a couple of bolsters, some wood patterning, kind of a shiny-ish blade. It is a slip joint with a riveted pivot, and you can kind of see, yeah, there's a rivet here for the slip joint part. Interestingly, the spine goes into this hook for, I guess, a lanyard or whatever. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but when you looked at the spine, you might realize this is fucking cheap plastic. They actually painted bolsters and a wood grain pattern onto this thing, and not even well. It bleeds over onto the top and bottom, but they didn't bother painting the top and bottom. So it's just a cheap, light, shitty plastic with a blade where you can see the tool marks. It's real bad. And it was 10 cents. What did I say? Yeah, 10 cents, something like that. So it's the cheapest knife that I own. It ain't a truck stop knife, but it ain't good either. But it's in my collection. It's got a story to it, and that's all that matters. And well, I got a couple of little knives here. I picked up this knife from that same website because it kind of reminded me of Spyderco with this hole here, and it's also really, really tiny. And I like the clip on it. It's one of those low ride clips, and they got the slot cut out where you can access the screws to put it on. I thought that was kind of clever. There's similar design on the Buck Quickfire, and it's just a little stubby kind of thing where you can use the liner lock hole to hold it. And it looks like something Spyderco would design, to be honest. Almost like the Chicago, except less ergonomic. And that's all there is to say about that. And then there's this one. That's also Spyderco reminiscent with a spider hole. Very shiny. And a kind of a neat patterning. Kind of reminds me of the CRKT Fossil, except it's more magma-like. Now this one is a ripoff. It actually has the Spyderco symbol on the blade, but Spyderco doesn't sell this thing. It even came in a little Spyderco box. But you know, maybe they sell it. I've never seen this on their website or any of their catalogs, and I'm assuming it's a ripoff. Not ripoff, bootleg little liner lock thing, and I thought it was kind of neat, so I got it. Last on my pile is this knife. This is made by a good company for a change, Case Cutlery. So it's a very shiny bolstery knife. That didn't come out very well. It has very shiny bolsters. This is called a rust lock. It's got a very characteristic piece coming off up here. No gaps. It's polished steel. It's bone that's been dyed blue. And I bought this because I just wanted a rust lock knife. And I got it from the Case Cutlery outlet near St. Louis on a road trip. I go on a lot of road trips, don't I? And the neat thing about this knife is that it's unlike, say, the Swiss Army knife, where you have to use two hands to open it. You have to use one hand for the handle, and then you use your thumb to open the other one. And this was designed so that you can actually open it one-handed, and it's not open assisted, and it's not something you flick. It's a folder, and it takes a while to master. I paid quite a bit for this, for me. I think I paid $60 or $70 for it, but it's a very beautiful knife. And the way you open it is, my first instinct was to do this. You're not going to get it to budge. It's not going to go. There's a technique to it. You actually have to sort of palm it in your hand like this. Not the palm, but I guess put it up by your fingers and kind of curl it and cradle it a little bit. And you use your thumb to move the blade out until it locks. And that's how the rust lock blade works. And it's got sort of a strange blade shape. It kind of reminds me of a very sinister Woody the Woodpecker. And, oh, I can see my reflection in it. Cool. All right. And there was something interesting about this knife that I noticed. So this kind of roughening, this patterning they put in the wood, they call jigging. And I saw, oh, this is going to be hard to see, that in the bolster, this jigging actually sort of invades the bolster a little bit. You kind of see that? That one little mark makes an impression in that bolster, which means during the manufacturing process, they actually do the jigging after they assemble the knife. I thought that was kind of interesting. I didn't notice until after I bought it, and then I was like, wow, there's a dent in my bolster. Oh, wait, that's part of the jigging. So, that's your case rust lock knife. I don't know if it was designed by or just named after Russ, the guy Russ. I don't know his last name. Russ Case, maybe. He was the son of the person who founded Case Cutlery, and he passed away in a tragically young age. So this was named after him. He might have designed it. I just don't remember. And it's kind of a neat opening mechanism for this little slip joint knife. Slip joint. It's a liner lock knife. Anyway, so that's my video for today. My little small eccentric collection of orange fish, mystery blades, my failed attempt at trying to get into collecting one type of knife, cheapest knife in existence, a useless coin, kind of a neat boot knife thing, a couple of things that look like Spyderco knives, but they're not, my very first knife, and my case rust lock. This has been JJJinks Truck Stop!